Hello, everyone. Nice to have you all with us here on this webinar, The State of Fraud in the Gig Economy 2025. I'm Victor Cavalcanti, or Victor Gouveia, your host for today's session, and I'm excited to have this conversation with my guest, Felix Hayes. We would be joined by Maria Sasseri as well from Just Eat Takeaway, but she had unfortunately a urgent matter to attend literally 5 minutes before we begin here, so she won't be joining us today, unfortunately. Yeah, so I'm glad you guys joined us today. But before we jump into the topics, let me give some time to Felix to introduce himself, and then I will talk a little bit about me as well.
Thank you, Victor. Yep. So I'm Felix. I work at Bolt. Bolt is a mobility platform in Europe, and we are a global mobility platform. I'm in charge of the fraud when it comes to rentals, the rental side of the business. What is rentals is micromobility, aka scooters and e-bikes. I don't know if you have seen them in some of the major cities in Europe. But also, I'm in charge of the fraud part of car sharing, which is when you rent a car, one of the or cars that are located in many of the European cities. A little bit about myself. I'm originally from Mexico, but now I'm living in Estonia. And I had been in this company since it was a very small startup.
Nice. Well, Victor, as I said, I'm the head of customer success here at Incognia. I've been around for 6 years, completed this month actually. And I've been helping, all of our customers go about their fraud problems. And I've been serving both the gig economy and the finance industry as well for the past 5 years. So yeah, I'm glad to be here with you all. So now let's jump a little bit on the agenda, and I will explain a little bit about I'll then give some context about the survey, and we're going to jump into the questions and highlights here we have for today. Okay, so we'll cover here very quickly leading fraud and abuse threats. In other words, what are the respondees from the survey more concerned about, both for 2025 and for next year? The most concerning, also what they think to be the most concerning manipulation. That's what they believe to be the threats that are facing the most, both again for 2025, 2026. Everything pretty much is going to have this perspective, right, for those 2 years. Inside the modern fraud stack, what the respondees are using currently and what they intend to use. Fraud to spending, we're going to be talking a little bit about how much money we are spending on those tools and what are the trends for this. The takeaways from me and Felix here from the form, from the report, and then open to all questions. By the way, this is a conversation, right? Feel free to use the chat to send your questions, and we will manage here to answer maybe some of them while we were talking about that specific topic. If something a little bit more broader, we can discuss at the end of the webinar. All right. Okay. So last couple minutes of me talking, and then we'll jump into the questions. So if you go to the next slide, yes, let's get to know a little bit who is answering, what's this about. So basically, we are interviewing two types of companies in the delivery side and ride sharing side, and companies naturally that work on both markets at the same time. So 63% on the delivery, 15% on the ride sharing, and 22% on both. Also, about the person that answered, right? The first one is about the institutions, right? Which markets they work on. And now about the people that actually answered that, 51% work on the career side. Oh, sorry, thank you. On the career side, 27% on the consumer side, and 22% on both sides of the operation, right? Lastly, the role of the people who answered this, right? 52% presented as fraud prevention, right? That's how they define their role. 20% product, 70% operation logistics. This is usually more tied to the career side, to the driver side, data science, and others. And the companies vary in size here, but there's a large concentration on companies which the fraud team, right, is 1 to 5 people, and there a big change that goes from 11 to 15, and some very big companies where they have over 100 people on the fraud side. So this is the profile of the respondents, both, I mean, in terms of person and in institutions. Okay. All right. Now let's jump into the first topic here, that is, the leading fraud abuse threats, that what we're seeing here and what the respondents are most concerned about. All right, very quickly here, what you're going to see is that all fraud problems, if you will, that the respondents were able to answer, order what they believe to be the first priority, the second priority, and the third priority. In other words, what they're most concerned about, and in order here. We have things like promo abuse, burn evasion, refund abuse, cancellation abuse, collusion, chargeback, payments, location spoofing, so forth and so on. And this is the trend in between 25 and 2026, right? Well, I would like to first highlight collusion is the top priority, right? If you see here on the 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth line, collusion is the top priority from the fraud fighters here, being the thing that they're most concerned here in the 2025, and it keeps as the top priority in 2026 as well. So this is one of the highlights. And for 2025, the chargeback and payment is also like close. Actually, if you link, if you order, but all the first, second, and third priority, right, it actually weights a little bit more than collusion. But for 2026, it declines quite a lot. So I would say that's the main priority, right? If you now let me go here and ask Felix, what's your impression here on this? Do you have any comments about the current scenario for 2025 to 2026 and collusion itself? Does anything call your attention here?
Yes, thank you, Victor, for the introduction. So first of all, I will say that, collusion, if we define collusion as a group of organizations like try to methodically abuse the system, I really think that is one of the biggest challenges that everybody in the fraud industry faces. My bread and butter is the chargeback and payment fraud, and I can see why it's actually decreasing the priority from first, as you said it yourself. Like if you put all the first and the second and third priority, is decreasing overall from this year to the next one. And I think one of the reasons it may be that because of legislation, a lot of the legislation is actually happening on the back end. It's not that I'm solving fraud and I will get out of job. Is that the big players, MasterCard, Visa, the PSPs, are actually tackling these kind of problems when it comes to chargebacks. And I can see a decrease on that end. So, and another one is that the people are more getting used to the 3DS tools that we have, such as 3DS. So I don't know, 5 years ago, when you 3DS a person, when you apply challenge and to verify the ownership of the card, it may have that the person was not very aware. So right now, people are extremely used to do that, and that creates a very secure ecosystem where merchants can use the payment methods of the clients. Another one that caught my eye, and it was the very specific types that fraud that we have. So, for example, van evasion, and I pick up this one because most of the people answering this questionnaire were coming from delivery. I do not have experience with van evasion and how clients try to retake their own account after it got banned by fraud. But hearing from my colleagues, which by the way we do have food delivery in Bolt, I can see that can be a problem, and a big problem, when you try to kick out somebody who was flagged as a fraudulent career, and it tries to come back to the app. And it's the same for drivers, by the way. The same for drivers, for restaurants.
Yeah, one thing that I believe is important, burn evasion, usually people are tying that to the driver side, as you mentioned, right? We're talking about the courier or the driver, because in the consumer side, there's usually we don't frame the problem of burn evasion as burn evasion, right? A person trying to create multiple accounts and etc. So it's very interesting, because to me as well, that is in so low priority. I've seen sometimes, companies, they struggle with that's something very tricky that I'm about to say, but they struggle with the fact that they have to ban these drivers that are misbehaving or committing crime. But sometimes they are more lenient with this. They are lenient with, okay, I have some gray area here. I will let this guy come back because I have a demand and offer problem, right? I have too many orders to fulfill, and if I am too strict with this, then I will have a problem in my supply chain. So I find it funny on how, because I've seen companies struggle with that a lot, right? And it got my attention that valuation is so low, because although it's a concern, and there is something else to that, right? They cannot just chop it off, or
Yeah,
or they would harm their operation. So I
yeah.
find
I totally agree because I mean that's the main struggle between fraud and product with the leadership of the company. We as a fraud people we want to stop fraud sometimes at all costs, but obviously there's the other side that every time that we add more friction to our clients, we actually stopping the growth because there will be false positives. I don't know any system that is 100% perfect. So yeah, exactly. And it's just not the growth as you mentioned is the supply that delicate balance between supply and demand.
yeah. and, and
So
and it's also the one that is probably seeing the greatest increase, right? It's going to from 5 to 14%. So it seems like at some point, or like to my theory here, that they have to balance this, and sometimes they are more lenient with that. Is there something happening that they're becoming less lenient
yeah,
because this is becoming more of a concern for the next year?
yes, true. And I want to finish this by saying that fraud is dynamic. Maybe chargeback and payment fraud will be a thing on the next year in 2027, and maybe by 2027 we will be just speaking about ghost rights. So the beautiful thing is that this is one of the very strong feelings I have about fraud is that we as a fraud fighters are not leading the way. It's going to be always the fraudsters that will tell us where to go.
Yeah, interesting
So
perspective. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. A comment on the collusion part. That was the biggest priority, and it keeps us the biggest top one priority for both years. I have a hypothesis here. I'd love to hear your opinion on this. One thing that makes collusion so hard to tackle, in my opinion, are two things. Right. The first one is that it's something that there's no. There's no tooling. Let me rephrase that. It's not something that is binary, right? It's like chargebacks. You either have chargeback or you don't have chargeback. Collusion is a lot harder to detect, and it requires some level of investigation. You are putting a lot more variables in this to be able to detect this, and even then, it's not like a flag that, okay, 1 0 1 here, right? And I believe that one of the things that makes it hard. But the second thing is, because those companies, I love to make a comparison with the finance industry, because in the FI, in the banking industry, the fraud is basically, I want to get access to your account, and I want to either get your credit card or your money, right? It's very straightforward here. But in this other industry that we're discussing, the gig economy driver, there are many interfaces. You have the courier, or the driver, the consumer, the merchant, so the company itself. So you have multiple interfaces here that you can manipulate at some point
and
to.
remember most of the people they're from the delivery space, so they also have the restaurant. For delivery, is even at another
Mhm.
player in the equation.
Exactly. So manipulating those three interfaces here, and you're not you're looking for bridges in processes, right? You're looking for things that you can leverage at scale, because there's no fraud here that is so good that, okay, I frauded one guy and I'm good to go, right? Like you can have in a banking, for example. So I do understand why this is a priority and why people are so concerned about it, because it is indeed tricky to me. Do you agree? Do you have any
I
opinion or
do
disagree?
agree, but I disagree with your first statement.
Mm,
So first of all, let's go back to collusion, and then I come back to something you said. I absolutely agree because I love what you said that it's not binary, and and even though if if it's binary, you will have mistakes in your data. You there's no your database is gonna have errors. But what I learned from the latest movie of Deadpool is that you have to make educated guesses. You have to make whatever you can with whatever data that you have available. Obviously, the more data sources that you have, the more data points, it will help you to make a better decision. But at the very end, as you said, it's not a binary. That's what makes it harder. But also, I want to comment something that you said. You said that for chargebacks, it's quite easy because you either way have a chargeback or you don't. I really disagree with this because not not all the chargebacks are bad.
I understand.
So you can have operational chargebacks where something absolutely out of the control within your environment. Like let's say that I don't know that the courier had a crash and didn't deliver the food. You somehow the user didn't contact the support, which I'm I'm sure that you have these cases, and then you just get the money from the bank. That turns into a chargeback. But is it really fraud? Not really.
I understand. I totally agree. My point was much more that you at least have a light
Not,
that lightens up.
yeah. From that side, yeah, absolutely agree.
Nice. Okay. I guess. Do you have any more anything else here that calls your attention here on this
No.
part? Okay. So moving forward to the next session here, most concerning manipulation tactics. We are going to discuss. We're going to see techniques, maybe we could frame as techniques that fraudsters may be using to attack those companies. So side by side here, we have 25 and 26. And looking first to 25, app cloning, top one priority, app tampering and code injection, tops the second one. And I do believe that they are kind of two variants of the same problem, right? App cloning and app tampering. Can talk a little bit about that later. But bots and script in automation, if you put all the priorities, this is the top one. Automated attack, I believe, because, right, as I said, there is no single good bot here. You have to have systematic behavior to be able to profit from frauding these structures. Image injection in the last as a top priority, but second, a solid second there. Device farms that somehow are related to automations as well, bots, right, scripts and automations. It's if you can think that those two things are somewhat related. You have a device farm to automate something, right, to do something at scale. Device hooting and jailbreaking also somewhat connected to the first two, cloning, app tampering, and also emulator usage. When we look to 2026, app cloning and app tampering pretty much it stays quite the same, increases a little bit as a top priority, but the biggest change here seems to be the image injection. It reduces a lot, increases as a top one, but overall decreases. And I guess that's the main thing here. Do you have any thing that caught your attention here, Felix?
Yes. Well, first of all, I think that somehow all of them are related in a way. I don't know, somehow. But I remember like 2 years ago, we were thinking that the image injection was such a big problem. And the people that I knew in the industry were talking about that this will be a great problem. So I come back to what I said early, fraud is dynamic. So right now we process have AI, but also AI is a double-edged sword. So now we as a fraud fighters, we also have AI to help us to fight the AI of the fraudsters. So it's the cat and mouse game that we always play. I am very surprised, and this is totally aligned to what I see, what I feel, and what I have here in the industry. Is the bots and script automation that are not going anywhere. This is like bread and butter for fraudsters. I'm so happy that I don't have to deal with it. And I want to shout out to the members of my team that deal with it, so I don't have to. But yeah, device farming is growing. And again, if you ask people in 2 years if the big rings that we saw in the early stages of the gig economy are coming back, most people will have told you no. we have solved that problem, but somehow it's coming back. Fraud is like fashion, like some things go away and somehow they manage to come back. But yeah, like recently I restart to see the device farming. They're way smarter now. They automated everything. It's not, I guess, our viewers, and I guess you remember, like, I don't know, 5 6 years ago, you saw a guy clicking so many the rack of devices. But
Mhm.
right now they do it in such an automated way that the device itself is just generating new inputs. But yeah, this is my biggest take. Like, device farming are coming back.
Yeah, I agree. That's something that we are seeing as a trend as well here on our end. Being someone that is in touch with multiple customers, right, around multiple markets, I can definitely say that this is something that is increasing for sure. And in our investigations and etc., we detect like literally companies selling like hacks specific to device farms for specific models. Sometimes you have hacks that are specific to be used with iOS devices, for example, or with a Samsung S, blah blah blah. So they get to this point of being really very specialized, even to the device itself that's going to be used. They're going to be plugging there and everything. So we are definitely seeing an increase here on device farms as well. And which lead me to a question: do you think that there is a they're becoming more sophisticated? I mean, technically sophisticated, the fraudsters, because to use that you have to have, as I like to say, some acquaintance with technology, right? It's not something that someone that is that has no background no technical background can pull. So do you think that they're becoming more sophisticated on this end?
Victor, I will come back to something that I said before. And,
Mm.
and again, this is truly that I live with it. I don't believe that we are the innovators in fraud. They have been always the innovators, the fraudsters. They are not becoming smarter. They have been always smarter than us. The only thing that we need to do right now is to catch up. But also, I do not want to freak the audience saying that the new frosters are smarter than the frosters that we have 10, 15, 5 years ago. They have been always smarter. They have been always able to find the value within the cracks of our processes and methodologies. So the only thing that we need to do is catch up with them. We don't have to be smarter than them. Let's just catch up with them. And again, yes, right now they're doing device farming, and again, the bots. I don't want to even touch the topic because I don't know it. But they're coming back. We will find a way. There are new tools we're developing, and once those tools become available for us, the fraud fighters, the fraudsters will move away. And in 2026, when we see this scenario that you have, I don't know, maybe image injection will come back to be one hot topic. Hopefully not, because I suffer so much with it.
So do you think that from those things that were listed, anyone would you say is the, how can I say, hardest to get, hardest to detect? I mean, you joked about bots and script automation earlier. So would you say that this is the thing you find the hardest to deal with?
No, I don't find it hardest. I just don't want to deal with it in a personal level. Very different. But I think jailbreaking is when fraudsters have enough time on their hand in order to spend their time, because their time is money, is a resource at the very end of the day. I found that this is the most dangerous of them all. When people are able to roof their device so much that you cannot even trust the own data that you have.
Okay. All right. One comment that my last comment about this is we on purpose divided this on app tampering, app cloning, because one thing that I believe it's quite interesting is how easy it is for someone to get their hands on an app cloner that could literally manipulate the how the application is supposed to work. In some of those apps, like I can say a name like Parallel Space is a known application that has those capacities. You can literally download, put the application there, and you can manipulate some stuff that it does. So for example, you can inform and ask for, instead of open the camera, you could open the gallery photo, for example. So
Yeah.
in other words, there is what I want to say here is that it's very easy to come by those solutions right now, right? Things that can easily bypass. You don't need to know how to code. You just need to how to press a
No.
button and to give an extra instruction.
Yeah.
So that's something that gets my attention, and I believe some people, they, from what I see, right, from my 5 experience dealing with this, they tend to ignore how easy it is to get your hands on something like that. That's so powerful. Yeah, it's so easy to use. You don't need technical background. You just need, again,
Oh no,
some.
no, absolutely, absolutely. And by the way, the website is full with TikToks and reels of how to do this. It's extremely easy that makes teenagers more tech savvy that you and me. I think we were able to be, and probably you and me have tech background, but still, the technology is evolving in a way that a everyday person can just access that kind of high manipulation of the app, let's call it, and with that high manipulation, like it comes to the question, like what are they going to do once they manipulate the device, because some people have fairly reasonable reasons to do so, but obviously the problem becomes when this kind of information is being used to benefit just themselves and benefit themselves to hurt us. But yeah, back to you. I think I went to other way, but yeah, back to your question. Yes, it's becoming
I have
extremely easy to manipulate an app, and I think it's going to become even easier with AI. Now you can just ask AI to give you the best program to manipulate your device, and your device can be jailbreak within no time.
I see. Yeah. Do you? I mean, from your experience, any signals, any piece of information, piece of data that you believe be more useful to the most useful to deal with this jailbreaking, app cloning, app tampering, part? Is anything that you have been you see that's more successful, easier to use, is giving you better results?
I think there's no one solution that covers it all. I strongly believe that you need to compare to what you're doing to an industry standard, have an industry standard to more or less value yourself where you are in the scale. But as a one solution to solve them all, no, of course not. There's so many to choose from external service providers that can help to increase your rates, your success rate, to target the right people, to your own profilings, to your own queries, to your own data sets manipulation that you can have.
Okay, so going here for the next slide, I believe I can do it myself. Yeah. So just doing a quick comparison here from 2025 and 2026, app cloning seems to be the one that is decreasing in importance and people's priority, which I believe, again, I don't know why this, because again, as I said, it's becoming easier and easier to get access to those types of applications in many way and shapes. But yeah, and everything else remains pretty much the same.
Except from jailbreaking. So I think it was just a change between jailbreak and app cloning.
Yeah, reduce. Yeah, it reduced it a little bit here, right? The one that you actually said, that's one of the trickiest one to deal with, which is funny.
Yeah, bots and scripts.
It's increasing. Okay. Any comments? Anything that gets your attention here? Some message here.
No, I don't have anything to comment on this specific case. More automations are coming, and this coming from more bots. be prepared.
And there was a comment from Brian here on the chat. We are not at the point where we can detect a lot of these. So for me, I would focus on understanding what kinds are in use on the platform and prioritize from there. Yeah, the tricky part here, Brian, I don't know if Alex agrees with me, is that, to be able to detect, you have to have your boots on the ground to understand which are the tools that are being used to bypass your thing. What I mean is, if you don't have the tooling beforehand, right? The best way to detect this kind of stuff is usually being on the forums, of the drivers where they're talking about it. Being looking into, as he said, TikTok trends. There are services that can monitor that level, and understanding which are the tools that are being used. We have had a success previously, a couple in recent years, where we were able to detect literally a fraud as a service. Literally, there was a guy in Latam that made a living off manipulating applications from some of our customers, and he was reselling that. He even had sales guys working from him, support and everything else by manipulating those devices. So summarizing it, what I want to say is that maybe one of the best ways to detect this is, being there, looking, pretending to be a driver or career that wants to manipulate this, and find those forums, find those discussions, and see what people are doing. And from there, you're gonna know, what are the tools that are being used recently. You have any experience here, Alex, as well? That anecdote.
Plus one to everything you said. Obviously comes with the scale. As I mentioned, I was involved when it was a tiny startup, and I used to do that. We used to do that up to a couple years ago. But obviously, with the scale that Bolt has right now around the world, is almost impossible. There will be always somebody trying to sell those trips right now. So it's not time efficient for us to concentrate on that at our scale.
Mm-hmm.
At others company scale, I 100% I recommend what you just said.
And the last comment here is that it's funny how we see those trends migrating, right? People export this type of thing. There are some countries, some markets are a little bit more isolated than others. I can say particularly about Brazil, as a Brazilian and as being, focused on Latin market for in the beginning of my career here. Brazil seems to be a little bit more isolated from the rest. And once we started looking into the South Asia, East Europe, and etc., we see trends spreading faster, right? Modus operandi that is common in somewhere, I don't know, in Middle East is now spreading in South Asia, in other countries, other markets, other brands. And it's easy, is to me at least, again, coming from Latam, from Brazil, it's intriguing how those things spread so fast across so many different cultures and countries with different languages and etc. But it's yeah, and which naturally increases in difficulty and complexity, right? How you can keep track of so many countries, so many trends, so many things that are with different languages and etc. So another barrier there.
Yeah. I want to comment now that you said it, and based on your the last thing that you have said. Again, I want to share for 1 minute one experience when in the 5 years ago, long time ago. I s- I was in the forums of Mexican drivers to see how they do fraud, and then turns out that a Nigerian driver was telling them how to do fraud. The Nigerian driver was selling the information of how a fraud in Nigeria was happening, and was selling the information to the Mexican drivers. This was like totally bananas, like how the fraudsters also communicate with themselves.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. You have been lucky that the fraudsters as well do not spread to Brazil. Fingers crossed.
Well, okay, moving forward here to the next session, inside the modern fraud stack. What we have here, basically, we had the respondents answering which of the tools, right, the solutions they have been using so far. And the top one, device ID, 86% of all respondents said that they have some sort of device ID tool, right, either internal or hired, like from some third-party provider. Email and phone number verification, close to location intelligence, 3D secure authentication, multi-factor authentication. This is a bit broad, but it could mean something from an SMS to email to something that you could use to protect the authentication, that the login part. temper detection, device integrity detection, and the last one is liveness detection, which I'll start saying that it's, to me, the temper detection, device integrity detection being in less than 50% of the companies, right? It contrasts with the concerns that they have shown in the previous slide, right? Meaning, if you have if you are worried about app tampering, app cloning, device farms, jailbreaking, etc., and you don't have a good solution here, right? What good does your device ID? Pretty much nothing, right? Either your device ID comes with something that protects it from those techniques, or you just cannot trust the information that's coming from there. It caught my attention.
True. And as it comes to what they're gonna do with it, because obviously, like in the previous slides, we were mentioning what the fraudsters are aiming, and it goes the other way. Like you can have a very bad device, very bad verification, very bad email and phone and everything, but if you gotta 3D secure all your transactions and you're just mainly concerned about chargebacks, then you don't really care about that. Obviously, you're gonna be losing a big chunk of your business because this is friction that you add into your clients.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you want a more balanced approach and try to balance between where do you put the emphasis on the tools that you have, on the solutions. So yeah, as I mentioned, I mostly work with chargebacks, so 3D security is my main tool. But also I work with verifications. But everything comes down that can we trust this person, this device, this card.
Yeah. All right. Any other comments here on the tools? Anything you see that's missing? You think, okay, why people didn't mention X or Y?
I do not see anything. I think IP analysis may be overrated, but
Yeah.
that's a topic for another.
Yeah, that much I can agree. So I do think that IP analysis is a bit overrated. People, I don't know why, but they tend to rely a lot on this, and it's maybe one of these weakest elos here from the chain. And
Yeah,
we
yeah.
I do see people really. One last anecdote I remembered here. Back to throwing back to what I mentioned at the beginning, right? That if you don't have the contrast of the concerns and the tools, right, that they're using, particularly about this temper detection. I have a funny story. A couple of years ago, we had a customer on the finance industry, actually. He was complaining to us that we were flagging a lot of false positives, that basically we were flagging stuff as fraud that was not, as a risk and was not. And that was basically our temper detection part of that, right? And he was saying that he trusted his call because people were doing a facial recognition and they were getting approved, and the face matched the whatever document, whatever they had there. And they asked us to turn it off. And well, customer is always right? So we turned it off, but we left
Of course,
left
it's
it
not always right.
we left it on shadow mode, and to keep track ourselves of that trend. And some 3 months in, the customer comes back to us and say, "Hey, Incognia, you are letting fraud goes by." And we say, "Okay, why?" And send me some data. And when they shared the data sets, pretty much was everything that we were pointing as tampering. Because what was happening was, they were using tampering tools to actually bypass a facial recognition. And we got back to the NSA here. See this? That's what we've been telling you. You shouldn't trust this because you cannot trust the environment. You cannot trust the application. And after that, he started blocking everything that came with this app tampering detection. So again, I'm bringing this a lot to reinforce what I said, right? If you don't have the proper detection here, the proper tooling to make sure that the environment is safe, you cannot trust a lot of what we're seeing, right? I like to say that the device is, how can I say, I just lost the word just because I want to say it. I repeat that all the time, I just lost the word, but it's an environment that is not safe, right? It's dangerous because it is on the possession of the fraudster. He can manipulate whatever he wants. And if you're not able to detect and to keep with that, you cannot trust the information that you're collecting, you're seeing from that. And this varies from everything, like from device ID location intelligence, facial recognition, and you name it. So I again, it's funny to me how the contrast of people's concern and the tools that they're using. Either they are understanding in like in the between lines that the device ID is solid enough to deal with this type of thing, or there is some gap here that the industry is not perceiving, in my opinion.
No, and actually, I cannot agree with you. Especially, obviously, I don't have external clients. My clients are internally. Like my clients is actually your team, customer support. But I can see that sometimes they escalate an issue and they don't. They're not. They see one of a false positive across thousands of people that we flag as fraud.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, what your client did, like probably they verified one client, one of your false positive, which is okay to have. But once you take it away because the client is always right, uh, there comes the fraud they actually caused. And by that time that you put the foot down again and a tool that was available all the time, it's too late. Hundreds of thousands of euros have been lost by that time. But yeah, I really agree with what you said. It's crazy that that we sometimes in the fraud side of things we are forced to turn off tools that we know that they're working.
Okay, now let me see my notes. Okay, so we move now to the last session, that is fraud tools spending trends. And here what we're seeing is we basically asked our audience how if there was an increase in budget from 2024 to 2025 and how they perceive that trend for 2026. In other words, if there was supposed to be a budget increase, a decrease, or keep the same. So pretty much 50% of the respondees said that there was an increase from 2024 to 2025 in budget, and they expect that 43% of the respondents believe that there will be an increase from 2025 to 2026, right? A small amount, 10% said that there was a decrease, 5% believe that there will be yet another decrease in 2026, and about the same, a third of the respondents believe here. So, wow, anything here calling your attention, Felix?
Absolutely nothing. So if we take the big picture here and read between lines, is that pretty much everything stayed the same. Some people are saying that it increased, but also some people say that it's going to decrease, and for the next year they're saying the opposite. So again, we will be reactive, and then if the fraud problem becomes a problem, all those companies that say that they will be decreasing, they will absolutely change their mind about where they should spend resources. And
Well,
everything is case by case. Again, it comes with the size of the company a lot. During the early slides, you show that you have companies from a very wide angle of employees. So I think the more mature companies probably they're the ones saying about the same. When you are in a startup in a more smaller company, you feel every kind of change a bit more abruptly. So your perception may be a bit different. But overall, I don't see any tangible trends that the spending is going down or up.
two two quick questions then to you. First one, regardless of the trend, do you think that the industry is spending as much as they should? In other words, do you think that those parts of the anti-fraud team, right, is under invested, or do you think that the spending is safe or in a healthy position, in a healthy situation? And the second one is for the companies and the people that answered that they believe there's going to be a decrease on this. Do you think that how can they work against that trend, right? In other words, do you think that there are ways to build business cases, that they could help asking for more budget here for the next year? Any
Yeah, yeah,
tips
yeah.
to do
Of course,
this?
and that's my day to day. Well, not my day to day, but I do this on a monthly basis. where I present the biggest fraud opportunities that I have and the tools that I have available to fight them. And I present also the tools that the team should give my team in order to fight them. And obviously, I present them with a business case. So, like, if you don't give me these tools, we will lose this much. And it's not up to me to say how much is to cost. Is for my product manager to go in and figure out if my issues are bigger than any other team issue. But I think that should be across any other across all the fraud fighters people. You have to say, like, if you do not give me these two, this is how much are we losing, or this how much we forecast to lose, because so many times we are launching new features that are that are very easy targets for fraudsters. So and it goes with a balance, right? Like if you're launching something new but you don't know if it's going to be successful or not, this is where you have to balance out, like, oh, do we invest a lot of in the anti-fraud measurements even though we don't know if this feature will work, because that will make your whole process more slow and more expensive as well. But again, I strongly believe in balance. So having a balanced approach, don't let fraud get too crazy, don't also stop the growth of the business.
Okay, so now going for the last part here, last session, the biggest takeaways would you believe to be, from the report and the results you saw? What are the three biggest takeaways you have, or if you have two or one, regardless, what do you believe?
Yeah. So first of all, when it comes to the context of the gig economy, aka delivering and ride-hailing, I want to break down into the big three question, well, into the big question. We want to know who is our client. We want to know that we if we can trust our client. And our client, the way that I see it is, when I talking about a client like the user base, I know that a lot of your reports talk about the delivery and the career, but focusing on the client itself, I would like to break it into three. Who are you? And it comes from three different phases, three different steps. Can we trust your identity? That's what we have team of verification, liveness, and everything that I mentioned before. Can we trust your bank card? So pretty much answering just one question: are you the owner of the card?
Mhm.
Which is done by 3ds in the card. And lastly, because all of this happens within the gig economy, is 2025, everything happening within an app. The app is 100% tied up to a device. And the last thing will be, can we trust your device? So when you make the circle of the three of them, okay, we trust your device and your card, but we don't really trust the client. That comes to the type of fraud that each of those combinations can do and what opportunity you have. But obviously, you want the client to be obviously in the center, that you trust their card, their device, and their identity at the same time.
Well, my three takeaways, I believe. One, the collusion part. I stress that I find it a very interesting type of fraud, and the fact that is the main priority for this year and for the next one, I believe speaks on how hard it is to deal with this. Again, because of the interfaces, right? You have three, how can I say, possible windows of attack, and people are manipulating the accounts and the relationships between those things to try to manipulate and get advantage over your processes and incentives you give and how those things relate. So a lot more than just tooling and technical is also, processes and understanding how the incentive game work in all your environment. That's the first one. The second one is the contradiction of having app tampering, app cloning, code injection, etc., as the top concern for 2025 and 2026, and yet only half of the companies said that they have some tool to deal with that. To me, there's a gap here. There is some sort of under- gap in understanding. Okay, either again they believe that their device ID, because 90, almost 9% said that they have it, is dealing with that already, or there is a gap here, or people have to address that tooling and understand, okay, how do I deal with this? Because the concern and the tooling, there is a gap on, how they're
Yeah, 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 yeah.
what they're concerned about. Right. Do we have questions? Quick question from Sorab. How do you size collusion as an issue in monetary terms? Yeah, that's a very tricky one. Felix, do you have any insights here?
Wow. First of all, Victor, as you were saying, is not the collusion is not a binary answer. So when it comes to binary answer, to measure the impact, it becomes I don't know, in the air. How do you? But the question is, how do you see the collusion as an? Do you see the collusion as an issue? Yes, I do see that it's an issue, but it can be done. Obviously, you can A/B test your flows and try to compare the two results and try to see if collusion, if what you believe it was a collusion is actually adding or restricting value, and at the very end just make a business case, GMB added minus fraud losses, and see which if your treatment and control group are accordingly.
Well, I have an answer to that. I'm not sure it actually solves your problems, right? But if you have the proper tooling in place, like for example, at the same device ID being shared across your app environments, like the driver and the consumer, for example, you'd be able to first, in the very first part, detect how those accounts are connected if they are through the same device. Like if it's the same person using the same device to use both side of the account, like account of the consumer and the driver, to manipulate and bypass. This is an easy thing to do if you have the tooling in place, and you can get all the cases like this, and you sum up the money of, okay, how much money did I lose in those cases, and you have a scenario. That's one thing, but this again, I I I believe that doesn't cover even not even half of the problem. But the second layer here, the one that gets a little bit more complicated, is you can also get relationships over multiple devices and multiple accounts, right? Usually those collusion things, they leak. And what I mean is, there's a device that is accessing some consumer accounts and some driver accounts. There's a second device that appears here and accesses some of those accounts as well, and the third one that accesses the driver account. So at the end of the day, you ended up with a network, right, that is of devices and places, that are somehow connected to the accounts and the drivers, and you can connect them on your side by the transactions they're doing, the orders and everything. So once you size this, how can I say, net, you can look for how much money you lost again with those interactions, and you multiply that. Okay, in all that network, that's the amount of money I lost here, and naturally, you can get the networks that are connected. There should be some way to point, where there are relationships that go so high. Again, with devices accessing multiple accounts in different applications you have, and etc., so forth and so on. Ended up, if you are able to put dollar tag on how much money I lost in this interaction here, right? You can average that to the whole interaction of all the accounts and entities here, and that's one way. Again, not sure the second part was so easy to implement, but at least the concept, it's clear on my head. Okay, there was a comment from Brian here. We would break it down to hard costs out of our pocket and value of the fraud. For example, if the driver gets access to our network when they aren't legally allowed to work, it doesn't cost anything, but all of their earnings could be considered fraudulent. Interesting. Okay, collusion is a tool for fraud core fraud patterns. Again, if you determine what that collusion leads to, what against. Okay. Does anyone has more questions about it? It seems the discussion is going well here on the chat. I won't be reading everything, but it's for the sake of determining what the collusion leads to. Fantastic. That is indeed a very good comment. We are about time, right? We are reaching the time limit here. We'll give just last 30 seconds, 10 seconds for a question. If nothing pops up, I would like to thank you all for your time. I would like to thank Felix for being here, for your time, for your consideration, your time spent in preparing for this, and also being here with me. And I'd like to thank everybody that joined us and kept with us from the beginning to end. We had very little drops here, so thank you very much. And we're gonna be this is being recorded. we're going to share that with the group, highlights of the report and etc. So you're going to see this and receive the piece of this webinar and have access to that, so you can get some thought on that. Thank you all, and see you next time.
Thank you, guys.